Live. I think I'm gonna check with the chat and make sure before we begin. Chat, can you hear me? Chat, are we live? We are live. All right. So we are here with me. You guys know me, and we're here with Dr. Robert Glover, who is a marriage and family therapist. He's right here. He's been working in psychology for over 30 years. And pretty much one day, Dr. Glover decided that the whole nice guy thing that our society pushes on us was no longer serving him, and he figured out how to talk to people about it. The whole happy wife, happy life, she's the boss kind of thing, hasn't been serving men, and I think it's getting to the point where it's not serving just the survival of our civilization at a large scale. I think that people are breaking down personally, interpersonally, socially, and even politically. And I think that Dr. Glover's insights are going to be really helpful to help us understand that. Dr. Glover, why don't you tell us a little bit about where you've been and what you've done, and whose other shows you've been on and such.
Oh my goodness. I've already done one other interview today. I do about 4 or 5 a week. So I don't think I'll give a list of whose shows I've done.
What about just the big
Um,
ones?
the big ones. Well, Chris Williamson, a
Oh, here
pretty
you go.
big one.
Hmm.
Patrick Bet David is pretty
Yeah.
big. Michaela Peterson's pretty big.
Mm-hmm.
Adam Lane Smith, who you recently
Mm-hmm.
had a chat with, and
Yep.
actually,
Friend of mine.
I'm gonna interview Adam tomorrow on my men's program. So
Great.
as you said, I've been around for a while. My background is I have a PhD in marriage and family therapy. I no
Mm-hmm.
longer refer to myself as a marriage therapist because
Mm-hmm.
I let my license go several years ago when I left the state I was licensed in to move to Mexico, not
Mm-hmm.
because I was on the run for any
Yeah.
particular reason, other than I just like it here. So I live in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico.
Oh, cool.
My book, No More Mr. Nice Guy, came out early 2000s, has been out almost 25 years now. And for a book that a lot of publishers said, oh, it's a good book, but our marketing department says men won't buy a self help book.
Yeah.
And I said, well, you're going to have to publish them for men to buy them.
Yeah.
Now, that was kind of pre Amazon and Kindle Reader and Audible and kind of, interviews and podcasts where, people put links to books on Amazon and people
Yeah.
just go buy them. But 25 years into it, my royalty checks keep getting bigger. So the book has not only uh, survived, it's thrived, and partly because of the diagram that you already pulled up,
Yeah.
that I think we've got more and more nice guys every generation. There
Yep.
was a bunch of them in my generation. I'm tail end, baby boomer generation. What was it, X that came after me? Then the millennials, my son's generation, now the Z. We just got more and more nice guys out there, or as the Z's would call them, simps,
Yep.
and or as Red Pill would call them, Blue Pill, or
Mm-hmm.
Captain Save-A-Hose.
Yeah.
Um, so I agree with you that this life paradigm, that's really what it is. It's a roadmap that men have tend to internalize at a young age due to a number of factors, maybe partly disconnection from father, a lack of masculine initiation, um, trying to please our mothers and
Yeah.
female caregivers we had in preschool and elementary school, trying to please the women in junior high that complained that men only wanted one thing. And we were happy to listen to them complain about those men that only wanted one thing because
Yeah.
we thought they would like us. And maybe let us have that one thing with them without letting them know we wanted that.
Right.
Now we've got, the whole social media that I think has had a big impact on feminizing men. I'd like to talk with you more about your thoughts on that.
For sure.
And the whole toxic masculinity meme that has been so popular, I'm thinking maybe it's beginning to fade. Um,
A little
but
bit.
I love, how, where kind of one of your memes is, women go online, TikTok, whatever, and everything is, boys bad,
Yeah.
girls good.
Yeah.
And I
And
heard
bad.
that in graduate school in the 1980s when I was in child development, and my feminist teachers were teaching that gender does not exist. It's just a social construct imposed on children by society. Children are born tabula rasas, blank slates,
Mm-hmm.
and then they are shaped. Well, there was absolutely no uh, scientific evidence to back up that
Of course.
stand. Now,
Of
now,
course.
now they're still running with it to this day.
Yeah.
In schools they teach there's as many genders as there are people, and that you can be any gender you want to be. And if you take a bell curve of men and women, boys, girls, we overlap, we have similarities, but
Hmm.
we're also in generally different from each other. And so yeah, this whole thing, and while I was being taught that gender didn't exist, I was also being taught that everything boys did because it was competitive was bad, and
Yeah.
everything that girls did because it was cooperative was good, even though gender didn't exist.
Right.
Nowadays, you've got a lot of cooperative men and a lot of competitive girls, and we've just done a flip flop, and
Yeah.
I don't think it made anybody any happier.
No. No, I think everyone's losing their minds and they don't know, they don't have the language for it and they don't have the the cognitive structure, which we'll get into later. I wish I had my chart printed out. I'll get my printer working one day, but for now I just have
You
this.
keep promising that, man. I've seen enough of your videos that you keep promising.
My
Why don't you
yeah.
why don't you tell us, describe that diagram that you have in front, because I love it.
So you mean this little one or this thing?
The one with the guy on the box on his back, because you
Yeah,
really
sure.
do describe how I've seen a lot of situations. Now, I
Hmm.
would actually add maybe one more person to it.
Hmm.
I'm not sure where it fits on the continuum, but I was talking about kind of the wussy doormat over on one hand, the asshole jerk on the other hand,
Hmm.
and we think those are actually two different entities.
Right.
I think they're just an extension of the same dynamic of men being in their sympathetic nervous system of
Yeah.
fight, flight, freeze.
Yes.
The passive men are in the flight and freeze mode. The bad men, the angry men, are just in the fight mode. And both are just trying to manage the people in the situations outside them to deal with their stress and their anxiety.
Yeah.
So what I see happening is like a lot of these, men with the box on them. That's the nice guys that I talk to. Okay. I'm responsible. I'm taking care of everybody's needs. I have no boundaries. I give to get.
Yeah.
Um, and then a lot of them go, well, I just don't want to do that, so I just won't grow up. I'll I'll I'll
Exactly.
I'll stay in the nursery. I'll be Peter Pan. So my question is, how does the guy in the middle get that box off his back, and or how do we go from Peter Pan on your diagram over to the useful differentiated man
Yes.
there on the right?
Yes,
What-
exactly. And I'm so glad that of course you did, but I'm so glad that you got all of that and understood all of that. The biggest problem that I have when I use this particular picture and ones like it is that a lot of guys, even the ones in my audience, will resist. They'll resist becoming this guy because this is basically, the child, this is the entry level adult, and this is the fully formed adult who is competent and confident and knows what he's doing. It's very, very difficult for men today, young men particularly, to get through this stage, to go from being a child to become competent, because the steps in the way are there are a lot of doors that are closed to them that didn't necessarily used to be closed. It's harder to afford things. The women are, like, we are all in agreement that the women's standards are getting pretty nutty, and they're the first time that I used this guy was, let me see if I can find it. I did a lot of videos on money one week. Everybody just kept asking me about money. And there we are. I drew how men pay into the system, which goes into the corporate, and both of these things benefit women. Well, men pay more in taxes, women get more in benefits. And then they have this standard of life that they no longer need a man, and they go, oh well, men are useless, and the men are getting left out. That's why I draw him burdened with that box on his back. A
And
lot of
can I ask you a quick question?
Sure.
If you can handle interruptions, we're going to bounce around a bunch, I think.
Yes, this is normal for my channel. It's
Okay,
chaos.
let's, yeah, let's just run with it, man. Going back to that other diagram, because I was watching a video you did the other day,
Yeah.
um, and with the women, and the men pay into the system, and the women take out of the system.
Hmm.
And one of the things that I've heard for quite some time is that basically, we've said, okay, the patriarchy is bad, the men are bad, but
Hmm.
the patriarchy is really about providing and protecting.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden we're going to cut men out. We don't need it because the kind of the meme has been government has become the husband.
Yeah.
Husband government will take care of women who have children that they can't raise and can't support themselves. So government will take care of them. That's
Yeah.
one reason I've always thought that men get put through the ringer in divorce and custody settlements is because the government would rather the guy who knocked up the woman or said, I want to live with you, take care of her after she doesn't want to live with him anymore than the
Right.
government having to
Right.
take care of him. But I had a thought while I was watching you talk about this on a video the other day
Hmm.
that I'm even wondering if things are shifting where the women are not so much looking for government to be the patriarch, to be the provider and protector, but they're looking for uh, business corporations.
Yeah.
They go to work for Meta, they go to work for Amazon, they go
Yep.
to work for, and now they get paid ridiculously high salaries
Hmm.
for doing stuff that's probably not even tech related a lot of
Yeah.
times.
Sometimes it's not even work related.
And then they even pay them to freeze their eggs so they can
Hmm.
keep them working through, what would typically be their childbearing, the time of their life that their bodies were built to have kids.
Yep.
And then, you know, they think, well, because I'm being taken care of, and then they hit 40 and go, well, my clock's ticking. I need to find the man now
Hmm.
who makes at least as much as I do or more,
Yep.
already has his own house
Yep.
and wants to come make babies with me,
Yep.
and they're going, "Where are those guys?
The
I
guy who's
can't
got
find them."
everything. Yeah.
But they were so used to that somebody will always be there to take care of them.
Yes. Yeah, that's the I'm actually beginning to wonder if that's like a built-in evolutionary expectation that women have to look up to men, like who's going to take care of me. I don't even know if it's necessarily that our culture is that way. I think that it's very possible that, artificially moving the money towards women has put them in a position where they're just all looking for, you know, the very few men left who can give them the lifestyle that they want, which is why, marriages are not happening and everyone's angry on TikTok.
And I love that Scott Galloway calls those men up there at the top Porsche polygamists.
Yeah,
That the women go say, I want the guy that makes more than me and's got status, and and I want to ask you some questions about status, looks, and money
for sure.
sometime on this call.
For sure.
And
Yeah,
they go looking for, I want that guy, but that guy can pick from lots of women who probably isn't them.
yeah, absolutely. Just before I lose it real quick, someone mentioned that your book was a very big help to them in the chat. Just want to make sure you're in touch with the chat. And someone says, "What are you a doctor of?" I want to answer that question.
My doctorate's in marriage and family therapy.
Okay, great. So, thank you. You asked me how men get here. Were we still on that path?
Yeah, I'm asking, yeah, how do we, and I love what you say that there is this rite of passage from childhood
Yeah,
into mature functioning adult. I've
yeah.
got my own thoughts and opinions about it
Mm-hmm.
that involves masculine initiation to
Mm-hmm.
where we come to see ourselves as having value that attracts the feminine to us
Yeah.
rather than seeing the women as having value that we got to go chase them.
Yes, this is. I'm making a video on this currently about being the table. Are you familiar with that meme? Do you know that one?
Being the table, no, you're gonna have to
So
share that one with me.
the whole money thing, men are starting to say it's too difficult to date women. Their standards are too high. They say, "What do you bring to the table?" You've probably heard that
Okay,
phrase.
yeah,
And then the women are saying, "I am the table," meaning, I don't have to know even what's good about me. I don't have to bring anything to the table. All I have to do is exist. I have a drawing for that too. This is her being the table. And her not contributing anything while the guy is like, "What do you want? What do you want? What do you want?" A lot of guys have had that experience.
you mean it's not enough for say I've got some cool tattoos and piercings?
Right, exactly. That which is pretty much what it's like out there for a lot of us. So it's it's leading to a lot of pairing difficulty, and it's also, I think, the fact that the money has been the money and the power and the ability to make choices has been redistributed is making a lot of men not even want to get up and try, and they're not
Sure,
becoming anything.
sure.
And that's their version of being the table. There are a lot of guys will say, "I just want someone to like me for me." And it's like, well, no one's going to like this. You might be having fun, but girls are looking for someone who can, do things, who can make them feel safe and protected and like they have a future together. And even though there's nothing I can do about making this step easier, like it was so hard for me, I didn't make it until last year. And that was a fluke. I got popular on a TikTok video. So I'm not saying it's easy, but I'm saying you have to find some way to get from here to here, even if it's not by going through the system. I have an app called SelfMax. I'll just write it down. That it gets to know you. It's an AI life advice app. It gets to know you, and then it gives you personalized suggestions for how you can get towards your goals. And there were a lot of things that I did in between here, and I like to think of myself as here. Really, I'm a little bit of all three, but I moved more into this type of character by getting better at things on my own, even if they didn't pay, even if it wasn't at a job, by learning about women, by getting experience with them. It's mastery. You don't
Hmm.
have to get a job and have a car and a house to go through this step of growing up. You just have to master things. And
I,
that's,
I agree with that 100%. I'd put that in big capital letters, that that is what that mature man is, that's both attractive to the world and everything in it and women, is
mhm,
mastery.
exactly. Yeah. So I'm hoping that this generation can figure out a way to do that because the traditional path certainly is not working as well for nearly as many people.
Well, and my thought about that guy there in the middle with thing on his back is that, and I've been asked this question a lot. Why are there so many nice guys, and why are they seeking the approval of women? I've
Hmm.
often said that kind of the golden rule of men nowadays is don't piss off the woman,
Yeah.
whether it's your mother, any woman on social media, a woman at work.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And so, and I've been asked, well, why is that? My thought is kind of going back to the evolutionary part that you're talking about.
Hmm.
Our for a million and a half years, the men were the providers and the protectors. Women have always
Yeah.
been vulnerable,
Yeah.
always been at risk. They've not been as strong or as fast. They've carried babies inside their bodies. They've carried babies in their arms. They've depended on men in a harsh environment
Yeah.
to look out for their well-being, and that's gone on for long enough time in human history that it is wired into who we are as men and women. As
Yeah.
much as the feminists might want to deny that, but
Yeah.
it is
The
there
tabula
now.
rasa.
And now what I see is that really probably since World War II, but really beginning before that,
Hmm.
boys have been disconnected from masterful men. Dads, left the home either through divorce or they're working a lot or they're drinking or not available. And nowadays, boys stay in the nursery, I call it, over there, Peter Pan.
Yeah.
I don't want to grow up.
Yeah.
Having everything pushed to them. They can get their information pushed to them. They get their sex pushed to them. They get their meals pushed to them on Uber Eats. They get
Hmm.
everything is pushed. You don't have to do anything
Yeah.
about, really all you have to get masterful about is World of Warcraft. That's about it.
Right.
And that may pay. I'm not sure.
Not usually. That's something I
Not
argue with
usually.
my fans about sometimes.
I'm almost wondering if it's a good thing to say you kind of got to that right side because you had a TikTok video that went viral. I'm thinking every young guy's going, I'm going to be an influencer. I'm going to go
Well,
viral. I'm going to build a great click funnel.
yeah, I
And
hope not, because that's a thing I try to make clear is that I would never have been able to take advantage of that opportunity if wasn't doing this all by myself. Like I wasn't doing it in the job market and through college and everything. I was off kind of driving Uber and learning stuff on the side. But enough of me was at this point that when I got the opportunity, I already knew how to speak. I knew how to draw. I knew the subject material. I knew about this whole
yeah,
thing, the whole
you'd
consciousness
prepared.
system, and I was ready. And if you're not ready, then you're not going to be able to
And
handle
here's
your
what
opportunities.
I agree. And here's what I believe used to get men ready. It was masculine initiation.
Yes.
In tribal times, the masterful men would take the boys at adolescence, take them away from their mothers. I mean, it makes sense that a boy grows up seeking the approval of women. I mean, our first caregiver who we were dependent on for our survival was a woman. And from there on out is usually women taking care of us. So it makes sense that we would seek the approval of women.
Yeah.
But at some point, there has to be a transition. And that used to be back in tribal times, masculine initiation. where the men took the boys out, and like the movie 300, when the boys in the cave with the spear with the wild animal outside, or
Yep.
went on a vision quest, or did a sun dance, or jumped out of a tree with a vine tied around his leg, or got tied to an ant hill, and the men helped him through that death experience to overcome that fear of annihilament.
Exactly.
And then they took him out. They bathed him, they initiated him, they had ceremony, they had dance. Now they said, you're part of the masculine tribe. And
Yeah.
that's where I say now the boys no longer had to go seeking the approval of women. They had what the women wanted. They had the resources. They had the furs, the food, and the fucks.
Yep.
And the women were drawn to that in men. Now, because and then for about 10,000 years, boys got initiated by their fathers and their grandfathers and their uncles and their cousins in an agrarian society on the farm, working around the animals, working with their dads, learning what it meant to be a man. And now, like I said, since about World War II, boys just don't get any of that positive masculine influences that helps them move out of that stage of thinking, I have to have a woman's approval in order for me to approve of myself, in order for me to be a person of status. I have to have the approval of women.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
so they go seeking the approval of women. And I don't know, I guess I've talked to enough women that women said, I'm not particularly attracted to men who are seeking my approval.
Yeah. They don't like that. They call that simping.
I,
That's the new thing, is that trying to please women doesn't please them. I have a whole thing about that too. Before we go off of it, I
I'll
want to.
quit interrupting you and finish some of
No,
your
no, no, no.
drawings.
That was great. It was just there was something that you said in there about the initiation. I didn't actually learn about that until just last year. Somebody gave me this book, King, Warrior, Magician, Lover. I can't remember
Right.
who wrote it, but it's on my
Couple Jungian guys.
yeah, it's on my my book list if anyone wants to find it.
Somebody will
And
probably put it in the chat.
oh, for sure, yeah. And the book talks about the child and the adult version of various things. And one thing that surprised me was that the hero is the child version. The hero is the childish version because running off into danger isn't really what a mature man does. It's like that's a young man thing to do to prove yourself. The idea of there being a structure of masculine initiation in society, that these men are supposed to know what you need to do to go through here to get here, and we don't have that anymore.
Right.
That's like that spells trouble. I'm trying to do as much of it as I can. And I'm sure you are too, but
Well, it
I
spells
don't.
trouble both for that man who's either stuck in Peter Pan or stuck bearing the unnecessary load, seeking validation and approval,
Yeah,
with no boundaries and no ability to assert himself. But it also affects women, where the fact that people aren't getting married at all hardly, and we're at a much higher age, statistically, you know people aren't even hooking up.
yeah,
That so many people report not having had sex in the last year, not being in a relationship.
yep,
And so this isn't just hurting men, this whole loss of masculine initiation. The women don't have very many good choices.
yep, yeah. And the men don't know how to become good choices.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah,
And I don't think we can blame the men for that. I think that's on, I'm gonna say that's on us older guys, on my generation, that if we are not helping the younger men get from Peter Pan, because their mothers aren't going to help them get from Peter Pan
no,
into a
they
masterful
don't know
man.
how.
They don't know how, and maybe some don't want their sons to grow up.
Yeah, there's some
Um,
of that too.
then they'll turn into the bad men that leave them, kind of
Yeah,
like all
exactly.
the other men have done.
Yeah,
So, but I think it's on us men to help the men, with the box on their back, to both begin shedding the things that aren't theirs to carry,
yeah,
and to begin finding a way to live a masterful life, because that's the only way we're ever going to feel good about ourselves.
right. Yeah, um, definitely figuring out what you don't have to carry is really important. I've got to zero in on that in some content too. There's a lot of things that men are being told they have the responsibility for that they really don't, and all it does is burden you and doesn't give you anything directly, and it doesn't give anything to your world that is going to make them want to give back to you either. It's just giving it up for nothing. You mentioned your generation. I did want to talk to you about this is a very multi-generational event that we have. You're I
I
think
agree.
one generation behind me, maybe one and a half. I'm not sure. I won't ask. But and
I'll tell
I'm a
I'll tell you how old I am if you'll tell me how old you are.
sure we can do that.
All right, I just turned 69 a month ago.
Oh, okay. So for sure, yeah, that's boomer, right? Boomer
Yeah,
generation. Yeah.
ta
So,
tail end of it pretty much. I didn't get to do all the drugs and free sex that
uh,
the older boomers did, protest the war and all that stuff. I was still in high school.
yeah, not the fun part of the boomers. Um,
Nah, not
I'm
really.
I'm 40. I'm an older millennial. I was 16 in the year 2000, and my the peak of the curve of my audience, I think, is about 22, 24, somewhere around there.
Okay.
So it's a whole multi generational vibe that we're all working on. And I wondered if you had any insights about that, about how things were different for your generation, mine, and then the Zoomers.
Yeah. Um, I do have a thought about it because when I started addressing nice guy syndrome as a therapist,
Mm-hmm.
probably a little over 30 years ago, because I started seeing it in myself. I was in a relationship. I was married to my second wife, and she basically said, "I'm going to leave you if you don't go get help." She says, "Everybody thinks you're a nice guy, but you're not." And she was right. I was indirect. I was passive aggressive. I couldn't set a boundary. I didn't even know what boundaries were.
Yeah.
I already had a doctorate in marriage and family therapy. I had no idea what a boundary was.
Mm-hmm.
And and I was passive aggressive and I was dishonest and I didn't want her ever to be upset at me. And I used what I call covert contracts, trying to keep her in a good mood so she'd have sex
Yes.
with
Yes.
me. Oh, just a lot of nice guy simp, behavior. And as I started looking at this stuff in me, I was a marriage and family therapist. Men were coming to me for therapy, maybe with their wives or girlfriends, and saying, "I'm a nice guy. I'm one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. I treat her better than her ex. I'm raising her kids. They go to a private school. I buy her the car she wants. I send her on the trip she wants. It's never enough. When's it going to be my turn? She's never happy. She never wants
Yeah.
to have sex anymore."
Right.
So that sounds a lot like the guy with the big box on his back. I do everything and don't seem to get much out of it. And I thought, well, man, I can finish these guys' sentences for them. I mean, they're just like me.
Yeah.
And so I started a men's group, a normal Mr. Nice Guy men's group. And that's when I started writing kind of the lessons, just kind of like you started drawing pictures. I started writing stuff,
Mm-hmm.
giving this to the men in my group. Soon started another group. And over time, these men and their wives and girlfriends said, "You should write a book. You should go on Oprah. This could be a bestseller." So I just kept writing. Took about 6, 7 years. But most of the men I was working with at that time were probably my age-ish, maybe a little bit younger, right?
Mm-hmm.
And a big thing that I heard from a lot of the men is that a lot of them had a big disconnect from their fathers.
Mm-hmm.
Either their dads worked a lot, uh, divorced home, dads weren't around, maybe saw them on weekends, or maybe dad was abusive slash addictive. And the boy had to protect his mother and siblings from angry dad.
Yeah.
There was just a big disconnect from father. Now, kind of go fast forward. My son is 39, so same as you, he's a millennial.
Mm-hmm.
And what I hear now from a lot of the millennials and the Generation Z is not so much that big disconnect from father, even though still, divorces, dad out of the picture.
Yep.
But what a lot of guys are telling me, and my son could have said this as well and could say it, is that now they're saying instead of, "Oh, my dad was an asshole, never around, beat mom," whatever they say, "Oh, my dad was a nice guy." And all he ever taught us was don't piss off your mother because
Yeah.
that's what he was trying so hard to do. So I think there's a lot of factors that play into why there's so many more nice guys now. Why is kind of simp nation out
Yeah.
there with the younger generation?
Mm-hmm.
Part of that is fathers teaching their sons don't piss off women.
Yeah.
Part of it is culture. Don't piss off women. I mean, if you work for any major corporation, any corporation in the U.S., there are laws that require the corporation to protect women from feeling, you know, uncomfortable. Anything a man might do
Yeah. And they
is,
game it too.
and well, I'm gonna tell you a story. I just read this yesterday,
Mm-hmm.
and this, I'm not. I don't get into the whole victimology of stuff. I don't think it serves anything.
Mm-hmm.
But there was an article in the paper, mainline media, not right wing anything,
Yeah.
about an attorney in Denver, Colorado, a young woman attorney, who told her bosses that another attorney working in, I think it was the prosecutor's office,
Mm-hmm.
had made her uncomfortable. And the other attorney, a man, 20-year military, I think had been a school teacher, just, astounding record.
Mm-hmm.
And, so they called him in, had the discussion. They couldn't prove that he'd made her uncomfortable, but he had to go to a different position, take all of his stuff, he even though he wasn't quote disciplined, they moved him
Right.
because she said he made him uncomfortable.
Right.
Then the woman started making up text messages from him,
Mm-hmm.
put them on her phone, went to her supervisors again saying he was sending lewd text messages to her.
Mm-hmm.
When they started to investigate it, and he got put on furlough or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
all of a sudden, oh, they said, bring your phone and your laptop in because they had forensic people.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I dropped my phone in the bathtub
Of
and
course.
I took it to the Apple store. Can't, oh, then I spilt something on my laptop. And now the attorneys in Colorado and I think the district that not only did they fire her, but they disbarred her. But nowhere in there was there any like personal consequence for accusing the man of doing something he didn't ever do. Now,
Yeah.
the man is now suing her and I probably suing his employers, which probably is one thing that we men should do more
Yeah.
when to deal with, these kind of accusations. But the point is, we've been taught walk on eggshells because a woman says you did something, kind of like they said during hashtag Me Too, the
Yeah.
victim is to be believed.
Yeah.
Well,
Believe all women.
I think in the judicial system, the accuser actually is to be not believed. The accusee gets the benefit of the doubt in a fair trial, right?
Yeah.
So we don't
Supposedly.
automatically believe the accuser, the victim. And what if the accusee is the victim?
Right.
And so we've got situations where we're trained, don't piss off women. And it happens in school. I mean, for boys to get from second to third grade with female teachers, not
Mm-hmm.
only do we have to learn our reading, writing, and arithmetic, but how to please a woman.
Yep.
And so again, all of that's probably pretty normal stuff if we don't, but if we have masculine initiation, we get to move through it.
Yep.
Then add in, of course, social media, the whole toxic masculinity, girls good, boys bad, how that's, promoted in social media, in
Mm-hmm.
the school systems. So we now do have we're just breeding little nice guys, by the millions of them worldwide, not just in Western culture
Yeah.
or English speaking cultures. I get emails from men all over the world.
Yep.
Some of them don't even translate; they just send them in their native language, and I
Just
go,
and they just
I,
hope.
I, I think this guy's just saying thank you for writing your book.
Yeah. Most likely. Yeah. This is I made a video a little while ago for TikTok about what it is that makes a man creepy, and most men. TikTok is very bitter, so most of the men were just saying ugly equals creepy, but I kind of talked about women get that creep response, and we all have the instinct to protect them when they get it, and they've learned to game that against men, and they'll just say, "Oh, that guy is making me feel creeped out," and then he loses his job and gets sent away and all that. And we don't have any defenses against that right now. And the last few years were pretty bad with the whole sitting there with the believe all women thing was pretty crazy, I think.
And
It's like even the ones who are lying.
yeah, that was just the meme, and yeah.
Yeah.
So that's why we've got so many more nice guys. I can understand, kind of the the incels, the MGTOWs, um, is if the game does seem rigged against you, or at the very minimum, nobody told you what the rules are. I can see, and if nobody's ever taught us how to be masterful,
Hmm.
well, I'll just smoke dope, play video games, and
Yep.
jack off to porn.
That's
That
where it's
works.
going. So I guess specifically what I would like to hear is how much did the men in your time, in your 20s, in your young
The
whenever,
old folks like me, right?
yeah, what did the men in that time, how did they recognize women doing these things? How much of a problem was it? What did you do about it, and how would you translate that to today in the age of dating apps and social media?
Yeah. What I did is I wrote a book about it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, number one, and looking back on it, the number one thing I did is I went and got connected with men.
Yeah.
I got into a 12-step group that was all men. I got into a men's group. I'm still in a men's program. I run a men's program. I, as a marriage therapist, when couples would walk in my office, I'd tell both of them first session, the best thing you guys can do for your relationship is have good same-sex friends.
Yep.
And what has happened to so many men because we weren't connected to father growing up, And often when guys do get into relationships, um, their partner, we kind of start sacrificing. We give up a lot of times our guy friends to, because we want to spend more time with the woman and we want to make her happy. A guy posted on the timeline in my men's program today about his wife had basically alienated him from every one of his male friends because of her complaint.
Yep.
And I said, every partner I've been with at one point or another tried to cut me off from my guy friends.
Yep.
Even if they were guys that they used to like, they go, "Oh, he's a womanizer, or he's a drunk, or he's just using you." And then it's kind of like, if you go hang out with him, you're disrespecting me because
Right.
I think he's a loser.
Right.
And that's what happened to me in my second marriage. I'd given up on any kind of masculine connection, and nothing changed until I started getting connected with men.
Yep.
And it doesn't, in some ways, it doesn't even matter what you do. I think it's great to have like men's group where you like go deep and maybe do embodiment work and get vulnerable and get real and support each other. But just having poker night with the guys, just I think even guys going out, practicing their pickup skills together.
Yeah.
Most of the time, it has very little to do with the women. It just has to be, I'm doing something with the guys, you
Yeah.
know, and it's time out with the guys. And I know that me having good connection with men has strengthened my relationships, and having poor connection with men weakens me and weakens my relationship. So I'm just a big advocate of having connection with men.
Yeah.
I this just this afternoon, I had my twice monthly call with my group of 7 guys that we've been talking to each other for 90 minutes every other week for 7 years. We're all 7 of us that started. We're still there. We're in it for life. These guys know me. I know them. Nothing slips, through the cracks. And we're there to both support each other, hold each other accountable, laugh together, love each other, and to really get the things I don't think in general women have the ability to give us.
Yeah.
And so I'm a big fan. I call it creating your great cake of a life. Go out and get masterful at the things that you love, connect well with men, lean into challenge, take care of your body. And then women are the icing on the cake. When we men make women the icing the cake, and then we can't see, I mean, make them the cake, and then we can't seem to get the cake to want to choose us. I think that's where we just get in that give up part and just,
Hmm.
well, I'll just hang out in the nursery.
Yeah. It's what I've noticed about women, especially, and I'm going to do a video on this too. Female dating coaches who give advice to men, they tend to tell men to do things and be things that aren't what they really actually want. They tell men to do stuff that is more kindergarten-y and childish, whereas they are responding to more grown-up, more adult men. I made a video about this. I should
Can you
remember
give
the.
an example of what would be the kind of the more childish things
Yeah,
a female
they
dating
say
coach would
they
recommend, and what would
say
be more mature?
yeah, they say be nice and buy flowers and listen to her and show her your feelings and all that. And that's like, feely kind of kitty kind of stuff. But
Yeah.
then you do that and they don't respect you because you're not strong. And then you have to do something like you have to put your foot down and say, this is how things are going to be, or you can walk. And they would never, like the female dating coaches don't ever say, you have to tell that to her when she's violating your boundaries. They go, you have to be nice and listen. And that's all huggy, kissy stuff.
Well,
And
I think thankfully there probably are some coaches, male and female, out there
sure.
who actually do say, have a backbone, have a boundary. 'Cause I do get
Yeah.
interviewed by some of these female dating coaches,
Hmm.
and best I can tell, they do like what I teach in terms of men,
Hmm.
you know, having their own life, being
Yeah.
differentiated, setting the tone and leading not only in their own life but in relationship. Kind of
Yeah.
like David Data teaches, for a man, you decide what direction you want to go, and he says to women, find him, find a man if it's whatever direction his train is going, and you go get on that train. Now,
Yeah.
probably a lot of people consider that misogynistic, but I've told guys as soon as you try to fit into the woman's life, it's not going to make either one of you happy.
Right.
And if you find a woman, again, David Data says, choose a woman who chooses you. And you said something a lot like that on a video I just watched. Is that I think you were telling women, quit picking the men you like, pick a man who likes you.
Yeah.
You're going to come out ahead in the relationship.
Yeah.
And so I do agree. Men need to be boundaried. We need to have our tribe of men. We do need, kind of, Pink has a song says, "Go away and let me miss you. When you come back, I want to kiss you." They
Yeah.
don't want us around all the time. They want us
Right.
out doing manly things,
Yeah.
and then when we come back, they go, "Oh, you look kind of manly. I
Yeah,
like
you look
that."
like you did something today instead of
Yeah.
laying around playing video games. Yeah, they don't like watching the weakness. There were a bunch of videos about um, that I was responding to about napping. Like a man can't take a nap. Women don't like it. It gets under their skin. They just don't want to see
Oh,
you doing anything that's not
fuck,
cool. And
fuck that. I'm a big fan of naps.
yeah,
I'm gonna take a nap when I want to take a nap. No one's gonna tell me it's unmanly.
yeah, exactly. So it's kind of a trap. It's almost the way that women, and the dating coaches aside, but the way that women communicate with men, they kind of tell us to do things, then we do them and they go, "I don't like that you did that. You should have done something better." They're assuming that we're going to do all the strong stuff like go out and, hunt or whatever. Go out and make things happen in the world and take care of things. And then on top of that, come back and be nice and do all the nice stuff. But they don't talk about the basic part of what they need.
Well, in a video I was watching that I think it was your most recent one, when
Hmm.
you're talking to the woman talking about situationships,
Yes.
and you gave a lot of really good advice about to women how to stay out of that. You even gave 5 things at the end of the
Hmm.
video of how to stay out of situationships.
Yeah.
But I liked your compassion that you have for both men and women, that neither of us really know what the fuck's going on or
Yeah.
how to play the game.
Yeah.
And maybe guys don't really know what they want, other than, we want to get laid or have a, the
Hmm.
idea of a girlfriend. And maybe
Hmm.
women don't really know what they want. They've been told, well, you should want this, or, but, and we don't know how to get it. We don't have the structures anymore, the rituals anymore. And we're all bumbling our way through it. I mean, I've been saying for years, even with a PhD in marriage and family therapy, I've bumbled my way through every relationship I've had, because, one, I think we're trying to do something that's not part of our human DNA, to have, long-term, lifelong, pair bonded, sexually monogamous relationships with the opposite sex.
Yeah.
We're not wired for it, but we're told that's what we should be able to just easily do. We should
Right.
easily be able to attract love. Whether you're a man or a woman, you should easily be able to find a good match. You should easily be able to be with somebody for, an extended period of time, maybe a lifetime.
Yeah.
You should easily get along and be able to work everything through. None of that shit's easy because we're not built for it,
Right.
but yet we think we should be able to. And nobody's kind of given us a little bit of slack and grace, saying
Yeah.
it's okay if you bumble your way through
Yeah,
this.
it's been the expectation for so long. Like we set up a system that goes against our nature, helps us go against our nature. And now the system's falling apart. We're still expected to do the thing that we're not getting any help with.
So how do we help men? In that guy right there in the middle, that's kind of where we've started, and we keep bouncing back.
Yeah.
What are some ways? I've talked about masculine initiation, but that's a little bit of a vague, ethereal
Yeah,
concept.
we don't
And
really we don't have a socially ensconced, version of that. We don't have a way of doing that. We don't have like a go out and unless you're in the military or something.
yeah,
But we don't have a consistent way of how you move from here to here to here. You've got to, like you said, be around men. If you're around men, especially men who have their lives working, they will point out when you don't have yours working. They'll keep you
yes.
sharp in a way that being around women only will not, or video games. Um, Aside from that, aside from being around men who know what's going on, I'm not really sure what to tell men in terms of how to grow up outside of the system, because it usually was just like follow all the rules, take responsibility, get a job, get things going for yourself, and it's working less and less. Um, the way that I did it, the way that I had to do it, because the system didn't have a whole lot of room for me, was I figured out how to do everything that I wanted to do on the side of
Hmm.
society, like at home after work, being autodidactic, studying my own, you know, I go to the library and learn about this stuff and make charts about it. You've
Well,
got to
in
be,
there,
yeah,
a word comes up for me. Is it you challenged yourself,
yes,
and maybe back in the day, that challenge was kind of orchestrated by other masterful men who had
Yeah.
been challenged at, and now we don't have, again, a man does not have to be challenged. Everything can be pushed to them, literally.
Yeah.
And I'm saying, I'm hearing, you've dropped a few clues. Okay, drive an Uber, going to the library,
Hmm.
learning stuff, challenging yourself. And I would add that to our list of how, if a man has to do this relatively on his own without a plan,
Hmm.
number one, connect with other men.
Yeah.
Men in isolation don't do well. Don't try to go connect with women thinking that's going to give you the foundation, the
Yeah.
base you need to get that box off your back.
Right.
Again, women are the icing on the cake. That comes later. We've got to get the box. We got to go through that stage of the box off our back, and I think come through the other stage to be the target that attracts the arrow, rather than us being the arrow looking for the target.
Yeah.
And so, where would you be today if you'd not challenged yourself?
I'd probably just still be living in my mom's house. I probably would not have put anything together that would allow me to do any of this. If I hadn't
Yeah.
challenged myself to, I learned lots of computer programs, audio, video. I figured out that I knew how to draw. I actually didn't know that I knew how to draw emotions until I started doing
That
this.
that is pretty damn good.
Yeah,
Nice.
it just kind of came out. I don't know if I ever learned it or not. Um, and all the things I studied and everything, putting myself through those things to become better at what I wanted to get better at was what gave me any kind of a chance. Because I went to school, I did well, got my degree, I applied for jobs, and I fell through the cracks. And I think that's probably getting a lot worse. I'm the only thing that I really know how to do because of what I did is to teach people how to follow their own path when that's not working.
Yeah. And I'm thinking, let's make that step number three. I was ahead of you on that one. So
Yeah.
we've got at least three steps now.
Mhm.
One, connect with men.
Mhm.
Because again, I work with so many men that go, I don't have guy friends. I'm more comfortable talking to women, or I'm kind of a loner. We're not going to make it that way. So number one, connect with men.
Yeah.
Number two, lean into challenge. And these are actually getting pretty close to what I often talk about, the five ingredients of a great cake of a life. It
Mhm.
is connecting with men, lean into challenge, regular strenuous exercise,
Yeah.
live with purpose and passion. And so I see a common thing you and I have in common. We went through different educational processes, but we're both seekers, where when we don't understand something, we go looking for answers.
Yeah.
And you and I both teach.
Yes.
And I'm wondering, because going back to the masculine initiation of our forefathers, is those who had connected with men, were part of the tribe, had been challenged themselves and faced their fear of death. They got comfortable feeling uncomfortable, which I think that's what initiation is.
Yep.
Then they lived their masterful lives based on what they learned and kept learning. It's a process. I don't
Yep.
think we ever get done. And then they taught others. They taught now the younger men what they had learned. And so in a way, this is a model that we could probably run with, and you can maybe draw some cool pictures.
Yeah.
So connect with men, lean into your challenge, keep challenging yourself, get
Mhm.
masterful through challenge. That's the only way to do it. You don't get masterful. Some people get good at shit really easily.
Yeah.
Most of us, anybody that's really good on guitar, anybody who's really good at shooting hoops, anybody that's really good at writing code, they challenge
Takes
themselves. They
work. Yep.
practice. It takes work. And then teach it. I think that's maybe a big missing ingredient, is that nobody's teaching the younger men how to live masterfully. Yeah, yeah, we're teaching them, oh, be a content creator, be an influencer, build a click
Yeah.
funnel, blah, 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 go viral on TikTok. But are they, I heard somebody say one time, oh, to have the enthusiasm of a 21-year-old life coach.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
Exactly.
I think we do have to kind of have lived a few of the challenges before we can actually teach it. We had to have bumbled our way through and fucked up multiple times before we can teach.
Yeah.
I'll just state that.
Yeah. If you know something well enough to teach it, like if you can teach somebody something and they say thank you instead of, you don't know what you're doing, like that's a demonstration that you know how to do it. Um, so yeah, be able to do stuff is really the basis of it. This is the symbol that I use. I use that for my system self max. I use it to indicate it's basically the principle of eros, like the spiritual principle of eros, and it's that you have to be striving, you have to be going towards something, you have to be going to get something, and this it's just too easy for this burden that is put on men to make men want to give up and stop trying. But if you do that, you're just never going to get anywhere. Before I lose it, someone in the chat, someone in a super chat, and said that he read your book when he was 18. Now he's 30. I still have a long ways to go, but if it weren't for Dr. Glover, I'd be much further behind in many ways, and women would not respect me like they do now. He is a hero. So, very high praise from the chat. That's from Golden Mantis.
Yeah, I've been reading a few of these of the chats as they scroll down,
Mm-hmm.
and some of them are really really cool, and I'm reading some of them going,
Mm-hmm.
I won't comment.
Yeah,
I
yeah. It's
you know
just the
when
internet.
it's the internet when they're going, Homath isn't the sharpest tool in the shed, or he doesn't even know how to run his own. I'm going, what? Why are you fucking wasting your time being
Yeah.
on Homath's live stream to just come on here and criticize him
Yeah,
and kick him in the shin
and
like,
to be fair to me, it's not that I don't know how to run my stuff, it's that I don't have stuff that runs.
okay, let's go with that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I've sat down with you, 2 or 3, 4 times now, and I see you as a competent, masterful person,
Yeah.
and it's funny. It doesn't take any challenge or mastery to write a jackwagon comment in a
Yeah.
thread somewhere.
Yeah.
But again, that's just kind of what's rewarded in today's world. Just
For
make
sure.
snide comments, and
Yeah,
that's all that's required of you.
the negativity of social media is really getting to people. And that's
Well, let me ask you a question.
sure.
Because you and I both talked about we both prepared questions to ask each other,
Mhm.
and so you mentioned social media.
Mhm.
Um, Here's my question. In general, do you think spending time on social media makes men more masculine, happy, productive, and attractive to women, or less?
A lot less. I think there's unless you're using social media consciously, which most people are not because it's designed as an escape. It's designed to be like TV or video games to make you not pay attention to real life. Because there's a lot of good information on it. Like
Of
if you're,
course, there is. We're
yeah,
putting out good information. Don't
yeah,
quit watching. It's good information.
yeah. If you know what to look for and you use it correctly, you can learn a lot of stuff faster that's not available, in your neighborhood or in your school or whatever. But people who are just kind of addicted to that stuff, all it's really doing is it's the same thing. It's the same thing as the man bad girl. I wonder if I still have her here. I'll find her. It's the same thing as you see the thing on your phone, it gives you a feeling, and then you just carry that with you, and you have this negative emotion that makes you do stuff that doesn't work for you, and it just keeps you in a trap, and then your life sucks again, still worse, and then you have to go back on the phone to get away from it.
So how can we help men? I mean, I'm posing this as a legitimate question because I get it. I'm not on social media now. I
Mm-hmm.
don't count YouTube because if I want to learn how to do something,
For
I'll
sure.
I'll go find. There's a lot of shit and there's a lot of good stuff. You
Yeah.
can learn a lot on
Yeah.
YouTube.
I
I've
think.
never
Yeah.
liked Facebook. I've never done on Instagram.
Yeah.
X is boring to me. I've often said I don't want to give my data and my information to Mark Zuckerberg, Elon Musk, or the Chinese government.
Yeah.
And those are pretty much our choices.
Yep.
But I, I think social media in general is feminizing to men.
Yeah.
It's still seeking that external approval, validation, likes, going
Mm-hmm.
viral, and it just is mind numbing in the amount of time you can waste. Now I'm not being critical because I get on my phone too. I have to make rules for myself. I don't take my phone to the bathroom with me. I
Mm-hmm.
can go to the
That's a good
bathroom
one.
without my fucking phone.
Yeah.
Right? I'll be reading a book. I love to read. I love reading fiction, and I'll be reading on my Kindle. And I'll notice, right now I'm bouncing between two books. One, The Omnivore's Dilemma, and
Mm-hmm.
the other is The Man Who Quit Money or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm bouncing back and forth between that. And now some of my friends, I recommended we all read The Old Man and the Sea together. It's one of my all-time favorite books by Hemingway. So I bounce back, but so I'm reading a chapter, and I'll read a chapter in my book, and then I'll look over to my phone and see are any new sports updates, any new, and I catch myself just
Yeah.
that addictive thing.
Yeah.
What can we do, especially to millennials that grew up with the internet, Gen Zs that grew up with cell phones in their hands, who are that is their world. Everything is push. I don't mean that in a demeaning, critical way.
Yeah.
That's what they know. And I'm talking about men like you and younger who are the best informed people that this planet's ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of really smart young men out there who grew up, with just information flowing to them.
Yeah.
But how do we break? I tell guys, you've read enough books, watched enough videos, watched enough podcasts to already have enough information to change your life. What are you going to go do to apply it to change your life? Because it's easy to keep consuming information. It's
It is.
challenging to go do
To go
something
apply
with
it.
it.
Yeah.
So how do we help men do that? How do we help break that kind of addictive, reflexive, just pick up the phone and look at it and scroll a while longer,
Mm-hmm.
and to put it down long enough to actually read a whole chapter in a book, to
Yeah.
actually get out and go talk to somebody in public, to
Yeah.
actually learn a skill and go try it enough and fail enough to get good at it.
Well, I'm hoping to actually just hack that system and make their phones tell them to do it. That's what
Oh, that should work.
yeah, that's what we're gonna that's what I'm planning to design SelfMax to do. It once it begins giving you advice about what to do, we're hoping that we can connect it to whatever device you're using and say, hey, did you do that thing yet? You're never gonna get you what you want if you're not doing the thing because you said that this is the most information soaked generation we've ever had, and I think that's true. I think a lot of the information is bad. I do think that there's still a lot of value in, you know, informing people and waking people up and telling them how
Oh, I
things
agree.
really
I,
work.
I I'm a content creator.
Mm-hmm.
I put out information and I make my living at it. I'm not going to tell people quit consuming information,
For sure.
but how do we do it?
Getting people to act. How do you get them to
Yeah,
act? How do you get the,
how do we put it into action? Because again, so many people I know that they consume self-help books one
yeah,
after another. I mean,
yeah,
those publishers were wrong.
mm-hmm.
Men will read or they listen to them mainly. Men don't
Yeah,
read that much.
yeah,
Um, and so again, I like good information. I read. I consume information.
mm-hmm.
Now, for example, when I'm talking to younger men, especially, I'll give them a suggestion. I'll
Mm-hmm.
say, "How about for 1 week,
Mm-hmm.
take your social media apps off your phone?"
Mm-hmm.
Now, I get I'm an old timer, and maybe they don't have a laptop or a desktop, so their
Yeah,
phone is their only connection to the internet and social media.
yeah,
For me, I don't put social media apps on my phone. Number one, because I don't use them. Number two,
mm-hmm.
I don't want them tracking me. Even when you
Yeah,
tell them not to track you,
they still do.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So I'd rather, put it on Firefox on my desktop, that I know, blocks being tracked.
yeah,
And then I have to sit down at my computer and mindfully look at whatever it is I'm going to look at rather than just reflexively, oh, I'm bored. I'm going to keep looking and looking. And this is kind of like eating, you know, junk food. I just want to
for
keep
sure.
putting more and more,
Mm-hmm.
in me.
Yeah,
So again, how will your app do that? How will it actually get people to say, all right, you made a commitment, you're going
yeah,
to do X, Y, and Z.
yeah.
Have you done it yet?
Yeah. So right now, I have to get back and do some work with it. I've been moving around the country and making videos and everything. I don't think that it's connected to mobile yet. I don't think it's bugging people yet. But what I'd like for it to do is, you have to use it, but I want to make it remind you to use it. And I want once you tell it everything about who you are and where you want your life to go, it's gonna come back and say, hey, you're not on track for achieving this thing. Do you really want it in your life? Because here's where you have to be by now, now, and now. And because everyone's staring at the phone constantly, that's where those notifications are going to show up. And that I'm hoping to break that habit, the habit of retreating into the phone and into technology. It's the very thing you're staring at is going to be reminding you, hey, you set these goals for yourself that you're not doing. How about this suggestion? What if you did this first? What if you jumped in a cold plunge? Would that help you be in the mood to do it? It'll be like having the guys around when you can't have them around.
Having the guys around when you can't have them around. So how will you make this as activating of our nervous system as social media is, as a smartphone in general is,
Yeah.
with the dings, the reminders, the buzzes,
Oh
the
yeah, that's a great question. I haven't gotten that deep into it yet. We're still in the early phases of developing. Like it's functional and it's working, and people are saying that it's helping them. But I'm imagining that because you asked a minute ago, like, how do we get men to actually get up and do stuff? How do we motivate them to get off the phone and do things? Someone who does that is Andrew Tate. You might not like what he's saying, or there are a lot of people, he's very controversial, you know? You might not like the way that he's encouraging men to get up and do stuff, but they do. Like, I've seen a lot of men say, look, Andrew Tate has stuff. I want to have stuff.
Hmm.
So I'm going to join his course or I'm going to do what he did. You have to show people, like, this is how TV works. It shows you a character who does something and then he gets a result. And then if you see yourself as being like the character and you want the result, then you'll do the thing. And it brainwashes people like that because they'll show somebody who you think of as being like yourself and he does something that would never work in real life, but then he gets the girl. And for the rest of your life, you go thinking, well, if I do that, I should get the girl, and it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And we need to show real life in a way that makes people want to live it.
And I'm thinking, and what if real life isn't that interesting?
Oh, it's not that interesting, but that's what the technology is for. They have even AI image generation now. You could have the phone notify you, you open it up, and it shows you a picture or a video of what you could have if you did the work. And that's way more influential than just words.
Yeah, I agree with you. I
Yeah.
agree with you. I'm excited for what you're working on, and you're you're insightful and intelligent enough to pull this off.
Yeah.
Even when you get accused of not being able to run your own live streams,
Yeah.
I got faith you can put this together.
They do my computer. It does need an upgrade, but this is
That
not going to
you
run on
could
my
put a
computer. So
picture, you could put a picture of a computer into your app to motivate you to, okay,
exactly.
if I do this work, I'll be able to buy, that.
Yep.
I,
Go
I know
computer shopping. Yeah.
Hendrik, my tech guy, is listening in the background. I say you can go buy that Mac Mini and the 27-inch high def monitors. He'd say no, no, let me build you
Oh, I'll talk
um,
to him
but
later. See if
yeah, so you could motivate yourself to get that computer that doesn't overheat from running too many apps at the same time.
exactly. Yeah. That is something that's exactly right. That's something that I have to do that I've been putting to the side because I've got other stuff in the way. For me, it's work, but for a lot of people, it's just sitting on the phone. So that's exactly right.
And,
Um,
and so I think you bring up a good point, though. We've got the thing out there we want. At least we believe we want.
yeah.
Maybe it's the woman. Maybe it's the new computer. Maybe it's the fast car.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it always seems out of reach. And we think, well, maybe I'm doing the things that are supposed to get me there.
Mm-hmm.
But there might also be a good question in there: is what am I doing that's working against me getting there?
Yeah.
Because you mentioned, well, I'm doing a lot of videos and I'm working this. For example, if we cut through it all and you said, I really do want a faster computer, higher processing speed, all the RAM, all the memory, all
Yeah.
that good stuff, water cooled maybe
Yeah.
even, and you kind of know how to get there,
Yeah.
but what's getting in the way of you getting there, and
Yeah.
what is maybe multiplying the amount of time unnecessarily that it's going to take to get you there.
Yeah. Well, you want me to answer the question personally? I know what
Yeah,
the
let's do
answer
it.
is. Yeah.
Yeah.
So for me, the reason that I haven't fixed my computer problem yet and just bought all the stuff is because um I don't I don't know what stuff I need, and I really hate the shopping process. I really don't want to spend the time trying to figure out, well, what do I need this thing and that thing and these resources, and then it's got to come here, and then I'm going to have to set it up. Like, I have a more powerful computer over here behind me. It's not plugged in because the laptop is easier to use. I've been living in this place for a month and I'm still using the laptop.
Yeah.
So my priorities can't get in order because I'm too focused on I need to churn out work. I need to churn out work. And maybe the work would go better if I did that first. But I can't organize my mind quickly enough. So I'm just focusing on work until I get enough done and then I'll deal with that problem later.
Yeah.
Maybe
Oliver Berkman says we won't ever actually get there.
yeah.
All the better we get at
Yep.
organizing our stuff to move stuff off the plate just puts more on our plate.
Yeah. You never
Uh,
get there. You're always going.
we're always going.
Yeah.
And this goes back to what we've been talking about. When we try to do stuff alone, I think we multiply the burden that we're
Yeah.
carrying. And that's why I say let's go back and connect with men connect with the masterful men. And I know the same is true because I've built companies, I've built uh, I've done stuff that if I had tried to do them all by myself, it wouldn't have gotten done.
Yeah.
And I am one of those people that does try to do pretty much everything myself. I even taught myself HTML and built my first website years ago. And I
Mm-hmm.
thought, not a good use of my time. I
Yeah.
enjoyed it, but it wasn't a good use of my time. And so, now I just whether it's going and finding a YouTube video that teaches you exactly what you need to know. I learned how to run my Sony 4K cameras so I could create video classes by going on YouTube and learning how to. I had no clue how to even plug in the Sony camera, and I watched enough videos. I learned how to do it.
Yeah.
Now, if you can't afford somebody, go watch the videos and learn how to do it. I'm not preaching to you. I'm just kind of doing this
For
in
sure.
general because this is what I had to learn, and I'm still learning this. Like I said, in my 60s, I'm still learning. Don't try to do this all myself. And so now I have people around me, fortunately. And it's funny, the more people I pay to basically consult with me and help
Mm-hmm.
me and
Mm-hmm.
teach me and do things for me,
Yeah.
the more money I seem to make.
Yeah.
And the more I'm able to get to that stuff quicker that I want in my life. Now, it still takes anything of value, it's still going to take time to get masterful.
Yeah.
But that's why we need a team and don't just, oh, I'm gonna, because if we try to do it ourselves, we are gonna be that guy with the box on our back
Yeah.
forever.
Yeah. Getting socially organized is a really big part of making things work for sure. And I think that we're losing skill at that as we go. Um, I'm not sure how to help Gen Z with that. Like you and all your buddies who are playing video games get together and start a company, you know? Like they've got to have somebody who knows what they're doing. Everyone I talk to so far, I don't know all that many young men, like Gen Z men personally, but the ones I do talk to, they tell me that a lot of their friends are really lost.
Oh, I think that statistically, I think all the evidence points that direction
Yeah.
is that, and again, man, let's not put more weight on young men and say it's your fault. You got to get out
Right.
of the
They don't
nursery,
because
quit, grow up,
they
quit
don't
being
haven't
Peter
been
Pan.
helped. Yeah, they haven't been
They
told
have
what to do.
they haven't been helped. They haven't been shown. They haven't had it modeled. They haven't seen the results that can come from living masterful.
Yeah.
And a lot of men I work with. I mean, and this isn't an age thing. Say, well, I tried that one time and it didn't work.
Yeah. Yeah,
Well,
try it a second time.
try it again and
Yeah.
maybe watch a new YouTube video to give you more clues or talk to
Yeah.
somebody who knows what they're doing
For sure a
or
lot of it is social. Yeah, it's a lot of it is that people are too isolated to be encouraged and to, feel like they have a reason to do these things and to know how. And that's something that I mean, I've kind of gotten stuck on it 3 times. I usually don't get stuck when I'm talking live, but I wouldn't know what to tell young men about how they can all organize socially.
let's just put this out there then.
Sure.
Maybe we don't have the answers for it, and maybe because neither one of us is living in that context
Mhm.
and have kind of found our way through it. But I bet there are young men out there who have. Young men that maybe either didn't have a father around or had a father who just said, "Don't piss off your mother."
Yeah.
Maybe they grew up with social media. They grew up hearing about toxic masculinity at school. They grew up being told they were bad for being a boy,
Mhm.
and maybe they found their way through. And I'd like to hear those voices,
Yeah.
of because I know I found my way through. My doctorate degree didn't help me find my way through.
Yeah.
Just going into whatever was a I'm a curious person. If something isn't working well, I want to know why. I'm kind
Yeah.
of a systems analyst. That's how my mind works.
Yeah.
What part about this isn't working well and how could it work better?
Right.
And that's how I kind of went to work on nice guy syndrome. It's how I learned to date when I was in my 40s. I
Yeah.
had no clue how to date, so I went and found the best information I could find and went out and started just trying stuff and practicing stuff and what seemed to work, I did more of, and what didn't seem to work, I did less of.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, guys said, "Teach us," and I go, "I'm not a dating guru," and
Yeah.
they go, "But you're getting laid.
Yeah, it's
Teach us.
working for
That's
you.
it's
Yeah.
working. Tell us what you're doing."
So
And so then
there are
I
certainly
had
some things you can learn to do on your own for sure.
I had to codify what, but even then, I was listening to like everybody gave me material, David D'Angelo stuff,
Hmm.
Art of Charm stuff. I read The Game. I went and found information, but then I went out and practiced it. I went out and did something with it.
Yeah.
So I would love. I hope if you're listening to this and you're Gen Z and you have you know, found steps that moved you out of social isolation, that moved you out of, just going along to get along, not rocking the boat, just
Hmm.
doing the easy way. And you found strategy. Reach out to both of us. Let us know what you've worked because
Yeah,
because
let's build
honestly,
a manual. Let's build a handbook for Gen Z to get to know people who can plug them in.
and I expect whether it's my generation, your generation, Gen Z, I'm going to guess the basics are pretty fundamental and consistent across board.
Yeah.
How they get applied might look differently, because like a Gen Z might be doing it on Instagram,
Yeah.
and I'm not, but maybe that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. It's the methods are going to be different than what I did. I mean, I still think that this would work for a lot of them because I did a lot of what made me a better person in isolation. But yeah, that's something I'm going to have to work on an answer for. I have a couple of chat questions I want to get to you before we lose
Let's
them.
do it.
Nick Brown says, "How can I differentiate between getting through the hard times and letting go of the small stuff, and being in a doomed relationship with someone you're just not compatible with?" What are
Oh
the
my,
lines?
that's called a couple years of therapy to work through that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know what? Again, I'm considered a relationship expert. I've been married 3 times. I've
Mm-hmm.
bumbled my way through every relationship I've
Yep.
ever had.
Yep.
I don't. I no longer see them as what I always tell men. Whatever your male mind thinks a woman can do for you, it's wrong. And
Mm-hmm.
I tell women the same thing. Whatever your female brain thinks a man can do for you, it's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But what I do know that if we're conscious and we approach it in a particular way, relationships can be powerful personal growth machines.
Yeah.
We're not going to find a perfect person. We're not going to find a person without dysfunction. We're not going to find a person that just checks every box. Now, even learning how in less than functional relationships,
Mm-hmm.
learning how to communicate, ask for what we want, set boundaries, remove ourselves, soothe ourselves, treat everything as a learning experience, be a good ender. Being a good ender is not my strong suit. I tend to stay way too long
Yeah.
in unsatisfying relationships. But I still even treat that as part of my growth process of how do I get better at it.
Yeah.
So what if everything in relationship was just school for getting masterful? It's a place to go get better.
Yeah.
Not how do I get her to quit doing that? How do I get her to do that?
Right.
How do I find another woman that does it differently?
Right.
It's school is okay. She's giving me the cold shoulder. What do I need to do to step up and handle that?
Yeah.
Or she's saying hurtful things to me. She's being disrespectful. What do I do?
Yeah.
Or she's being flirty with other men on social media. How do I handle that?
Right.
Or she's decided, she's not interested in sex anymore. All of these, I always tell men, we always ask the wrong question. We go, why is she doing that? Or how can I get her to do it different?
Mm-hmm.
Or where can I find another woman that doesn't do that?
Yeah.
Those are all the wrong questions. The question is, what does this tell me about her nature and how does that fit into my great
Yeah.
life?
Why is she doing it? What does she need? Is it fixable? Is it something that I'm doing wrong I could change, or is she just tired of me? I think that, I mean, if I was going to answer that question more directly, um, how do you tell the difference between something that's just doomed and getting through the hard times? I think it's whether or not you can get through the hard times. I think that's your answer. I think if you're having a hard time and you get through it and you come out the other side, you know you can do that with this person. But if it just drags on and on, at some point you have to, like, you just have to have a reasonable boundary, you know?
Well, and I'll add to this that people, you know, sometimes in snarky, internet comments, well, why should I
Yeah.
listen to what you say about relationships? You've been divorced twice and blah, blah,
Right.
blah. And
Yeah.
okay, don't listen. That's fine. I don't
Yeah.
care. I teach from my mistakes. I didn't read a book somewhere and say, here's how you do it.
Mhm.
I've made all the mistakes. Now, here's one thing that I have learned looking back at every relationship that I'm no longer in.
Mhm.
So let's say half a dozen longish term adult relationships.
Mhm.
Um, everyone, maybe with the exception of one, but everyone that I'm not still in, at some point in the relationship, the woman basically dug her heels in and said, "Don't expect anything more from me."
Yeah.
Now, she didn't necessarily say it. Sometimes they do, but it's their actions that basically say, "Nope, that's don't expect me to treat you better. Don't expect me to be more open. Don't expect
Yeah.
me to communicate better. This is as far as I go." And I think I always knew that about the time that it happened, and I stick around a lot longer because
Mhm.
again, being a good ender is not my strong suit.
Right.
So, and out of that, as a both a marriage therapist and a guy who has been married 3 times, I've also come to the conclusion. I don't know if this is just a girl thing, but since I don't do romantic relationships with men,
Mhm.
I've seen it with women. Is that most women will choose their neuroses and their defense mechanisms over love.
Yeah.
You may be that guy with right there with the box trying to, I do this for you. I do this for
Mhm.
you. I'll do anything for you. I just want you to be happy. I
Yeah.
want us to have a good life together. And she'll go, no, no, no. And they'll choose their defense mechanisms over
Yeah.
love.
Yeah.
And, it doesn't make sense to the male brain. We go, why? They say they want to be loved. Why don't they let me love her?
Yeah.
Um, and I women tell me all the time, I don't know why I don't let them love me. I just can't.
Yeah.
I've just heard that a lot. So what I would say, going back to the question,
Mhm.
is keep asking, what is her nature? What does this behavior tell me about who she is?
Yeah.
And how does that fit into my great life? Now, again, no one's going to be perfect. And what I have found, and the reason I'm still with my present wife, we've been married 8 years now, is that this woman is committed to her own personal growth and development.
Yeah.
Now, she doesn't do it just like I do it. She does it very different from me. She works with shamans, she works with brujas, she
Mhm.
does ayahuasca,
Yeah.
she goes to salsa classes, right? She does her work different than me.
Mhm.
And I know she'll do her work because we've gotten through hard times, not just because I did the work and got us through them. She did her work and we got through them.
Yeah.
And so that's the thing I would say the person asking the question keep asking. Is this person committed to bumbling their way through,
Yeah. Is she
but
doing
doing the
anything?
work?
Yeah.
Are they doing the work? Are they getting better at any of the stuff they're doing that they know? Because in my experience, and maybe a second piece to add,
Mhm.
does the person take any degree of accountability for their
Right.
contribution to the situation? Now, again, masculine, feminine, I mean, masculine's all about accountability, feminine
Mhm.
isn't necessarily,
Yeah.
but women have enough masculine in them, hopefully, I'd say to balance their checkbook, but nobody does that anymore. But
Right.
to show up for work on time, to put gas in their car, to pay their bills. Hopefully,
Mhm.
they got enough masculine. Hopefully, the woman you're with has enough masculine to be doing those things.
Hopefully.
And hopefully, she's masculine enough to recognize she is part of the problem,
Yeah.
that she brings part of the dysfunction of the relationship. And if a woman can own that and say, I get it, I can be a bitch. I get it that I can be reactive. I get it that I can be untrusting.
Yeah.
I'm but I want to work on it.
Yeah.
I want to grow through it. Now, I'll stick around with that person.
Yeah.
I'll stick around.
Is she trying and is she making progress? This is something I made a pretty early video about too, and particularly what they like to talk about on the internet is how can you tell if someone is if she's had a hoe phase, should you trust her? And
Well,
the
what
way,
is this
yeah.
with body counts?
Well, it's a big topic of conversation. People talk about it, so you
I
got to
know.
address it. So the way I answered it was, if you don't like the way she used to live, you have to look and see if she's the type of person who can change her habits because
Sure.
yeah, if she's not able to do that, then she's going to go back into old habits when times get hard. So, yeah, I mean, I think that was a pretty full answer to that question. I would say, um, if you're both actually trying to work on it, not just saying you are, and it's not getting anywhere, then that's kind of the end. Um, but the way that you can tell the difference between getting through the hard times is, I would say, if you can actually get through them, and
Yeah.
if you really can't, then that's it, and you should probably, not spend the rest of your life wondering, oh, what if I worked on it? You did, and it didn't go anywhere. As long as you put in the effort.
Putting the effort and again, don't try to do it alone. I mean, I believe in marriage therapy because I'm a
Mm-hmm.
marriage therapist,
Mm-hmm.
but Einstein said something like the thinking that got us into the problem we're in is not going to get us out of the
Right.
problem. Right. The same thinking is, and when people would walk into my office as a couple, they're locked in their own ways of viewing the problem. They've
Mm-hmm.
defined the problem as XYZ.
Yeah.
Now, the way I'm trained, if I actually engage with them and accept their definition of the problem, I'm not going to do them any good.
Right.
I've got to help them reframe the situation and maybe even quit calling it a problem. And maybe just say, oh, this is normal shit. This is
Yeah.
what goes on when a man and a woman try to live together.
Yeah.
This is normal. Let's see how we can help you do it the best possible way. So it helps to have a different set of eyeballs and a different frame for what you're going through
Mm-hmm.
to shift the way you view the interactions. I'll just give an example.
Sure.
Say interactions with my wife. Um, she's a jealous Latina. My wife's Mexican. She's never in her life known a man who was faithful. Every man she's ever known has been
Mm.
a serial cheater, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's part of macho culture.
Yeah.
Began with her father and is included every man,
Yeah.
literally every man.
Yeah.
Okay. So she, of course, expects that I'll cheat on her. And, she is and, for a long time, pretty much had no doubt of it. She's gone to work on that. She's really worked on her trust issues and her insecurities, but she'll still like get this look like, oh, I know she's got something cooked up in her head. She thinks I'm, got some girlfriend, or I can tell by the look.
Mm-hmm.
I used to get these reactions to her. Look, I'm a good guy. I haven't cheated on you. I'm not doing anything. I don't have a girlfriend. That
Mm-hmm.
didn't work. It never got her over. But what happened when instead of me thinking, I'm being falsely accused by her, I haven't done anything wrong,
Yeah.
I started reframing it. And I thought, okay, maybe my wife isn't feeling sufficiently loved by me right now,
Mm-hmm.
whatever that means to her.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe she's not feeling sufficiently secure with me right now,
Mm-hmm.
whatever that means, or
Mm-hmm.
doesn't feel sufficiently connected to me. And I
Right.
found when women aren't happy with the man in their life, it's usually one of those three things. And it's usually not a factual thing,
Mm-hmm.
it's an emotional thing. I just
Right.
don't feel loved by you right now. Well, what does that even mean? I bought you Lululemon. I took you out. I did
Oh,
that.
right.
Blah,
It
blah.
just didn't work.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it did. But no, it for her, it means something different. So if I can reframe when my wife goes into that place where I know her ruminating brain has cooked up something that I must be doing with, some puta,
Mm-hmm.
um, instead of getting triggered by it, which I used to, and we go round and round, nothing ever got better. I learned to breathe and ground myself, stay in the moment,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of get her into the moment out of the time machine of her head that's either going into the past or into the future. And by reframing, maybe she just needs more love or
Yeah.
more security or more connection with me.
Yeah.
And is there anything I can do about that? And what's been amazing, if I just ask myself those questions,
Right.
I interact with her differently and she responds
Yeah.
differently.
Yeah.
So
If you
we
can
need we
slow
need to
down.
reframe.
Yeah.
And I didn't do that on my own. I had to go out and get help to help me find a different way of interacting with my wife that
Yeah.
wasn't working well.
Yeah. Yeah. There's this community again, which
There it is again.
we really got to figure that out for them. There's a couple of questions that I did want to get to. I don't know if you had any important ones for me before
Well,
we.
I got about six more, but
Oh, okay,
I
great.
want yours. No,
Yeah.
we're not going to get to all six of mine. So give me one of yours.
I wanted to know what would you say right now are the biggest bad ideas that men have and women have? In your idea of the
Ooh.
marketplace right now, in between like, people of dating age, 20 to 40, what have you noticed are the biggest bad ideas that men are saying and following, and the biggest bad ideas women are saying and following?
Wow, I don't.
Mm-hmm.
I wish I knew.
Mm-hmm.
Um, here's here's a thought. I don't know if this is even in the ballpark of what you're asking.
Sure.
I alluded earlier that statistically, um, men and women both, but since I mainly focus on men, I noticed the statistical aspects of men.
Mm-hmm.
Is that more and more men report not being in relationship
Yeah.
and haven't been for extended periods of time. More and more men report not having sex and not
Yeah.
having sexual access. And I'm going, what's wrong with this picture? We have all the technology,
Yeah.
all the wisdom, information that we need. I mean, again, there's no shortage of information for men and women both of how to go get what you want in
Yeah.
the dating world,
Mm-hmm.
right? Some of it good, some of it bad, some of it, whatever.
Yeah.
Um, Men can go to, pick up boot camps. Women can learn how to be sexy and do the thing that turns men on.
Mm-hmm.
The thing with the swipe right apps, now
Mm-hmm.
those came along after my dating time. I'm dating
Yeah.
myself, so to speak. So
Yeah. It's a
I
different world.
and and I would say that maybe that's what I would put the spotlight on is this technology that we're using, including swipe right.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to include social media. I'm
Yeah.
going to include just internet in general. I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
include porn in
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
That my thought, now, just my thought, and I'm still kind of refining this point of view,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm still open to feedback on it. I think what's happening for people, single people, is that both men and women are both dealing with a gigantic case of FOMO,
Mm-hmm.
fear of missing out.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to put men in two categories. I'm going to put men in one group of men are the ones who've never learned, either never learned the social skills, never gotten out of their comfort zone. Um, they have the powerful self-limiting beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have, status, looks and money to get a woman.
Yeah.
They've just, that's men in one category that don't even talk to women.
Yeah.
Right. There's that category. That's a whole, you know, conversation in itself. But let's say we have the other category of men who maybe have gone to the dating boot camps, who maybe are look at a lot of porn. Maybe they're on social media and they're looking at Instagram models. Maybe they just go to the mall and see everybody walking around in Lululemon and they all look fucking amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe we're on swipe rights and there's just so many. Oh man, look, there's another one. She's right next door.
Yeah.
We have this abundance of I'm going to say seeming
Well, yeah.
opportunity.
Well, for the men who are on the dating apps now, the it's been a good few years that people have recognized that unless you are a really exceptional guy, you don't have any opportunity on the apps. Are you
I'll,
familiar?
I'll, I'll go with that.
Sure. Yeah.
I've seen your diagram of, how the women all go for the certain guys and of
Yeah.
course
Yeah.
the guys all go for the certain women. So that's going to happen. But you know what? There's a lot of great guys out there that
Mm-hmm.
don't have status, look for money, and a lot of great women out
Mm-hmm.
there that aren't tens. Okay. But
Mm-hmm.
here's why those guys, those men and women, both don't get noticed
Mm-hmm.
and don't don't notice
Yeah.
people in that category. Because what's happening is, say, I'm with us men,
Mm-hmm.
we can look at just hot woman after hot woman after hot
Mm-hmm.
woman. They're online,
Yeah.
they're around us, they're in
Mm-hmm.
porn, they're at the mall, they're walking by us.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to guess that my grandfather didn't see three beautiful women in his lifetime, and probably didn't see any of them naked.
Yeah.
Right? We see beautiful women everywhere
Mm-hmm.
naked,
Mm-hmm.
next whatever. And so what happens is if a guy goes, well, if I pick this woman, she seems pretty good. I'm attracted to her.
Mm-hmm.
We seem to be getting along, but oh, she's hotter. Oh, she's younger. Or I could go for that. Or we're still scrolling. I could have the problem with the FOMO for in the
Mm-hmm.
men's category is if I pick one
Mm-hmm.
and go in and just give it a chance
Yeah.
and see where it can go. There's that FOMO. Well, I can't sleep with all the other women I want. Well,
Right.
if you don't want to be monogamous, don't be monogamous. You
Right.
can
There is a little
still
bit of that. Yeah.
you can do that as well. Just be open and honest about it.
Mm-hmm.
But if I get with this one, what if I see a hotter one? And
Right.
then I can't go be with her. Well, you're always going to see hotter ones. I mean,
Yeah.
one
That's.
thing I've learned about getting older is, the number of young women keeps going up. It's increasing the
Yeah.
older I get.
Yeah.
I'm always going to see, younger, attractive women. But if I let my mind constantly go, but well, if I pick one, I can't have that one.
Yeah.
It's the FOMO. On the women's side of it, it's still a FOMO thing. If they're on the apps or on social media, they are getting so much fucking attention
Yeah.
from men all the fucking time.
Yeah.
And men of all sorts are, liking them, swiping right, going on their OnlyFans page, paying them money,
Yep.
blah, 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 blah.
Yep.
And so if
Lots of
the
attention.
women pick one guy and say, I'm gonna give it a try. He seems like a good guy. I'm attracted to him. He's intelligent. I like what he's doing in the world. I'm gonna give him a try. Oh, but that means I have to give up getting attention from hundreds or thousands of men
Yeah.
who are following me on social media and who
Yeah.
are swiping right. I'm gonna have to give up all of that attention
Yeah.
just settle for the attention of one man.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that answers your question, but I actually think it's our technology and hookup culture has given us a giant FOMO. Men's one kind, women's is a different kind.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like if I pick one, I got to give up the option of all the others.
Yeah.
And you talk about we're in a maturity crisis.
Right.
I don't want to grow up and just pick one and have to give up
Yeah. I
being
think
able
that
to pick all the others.
I think this is like what you're describing is much more of a woman problem than a man problem. Like they don't want to you know they're not interested in the guys that are giving them attention, and they all end up like the first video I ever made was a girl who was this is she's a pretty cute girl or whatever, but she was saying men with no hose, where are you? Because every time she likes a guy, all the other girls like him. Um, Definitely, I think that you hit the nail on the head with that one. I think there's more guys out there who are getting zero. Like, yeah, I mean, you
Well,
mentioned
I
earlier.
said there is a category of men that are getting no play,
Yeah,
right? That's a whole nother category with different answers. What I found with men is once they get good at it, once they figure out,
yeah. Once they know what they're doing,
once they know what they're doing, and they have a little charisma, and they got a little bit going on in their life, and if you get good, I mean, I,
they go crazy.
in my 40s, and 50s, where I got good at it,
Mm-hmm.
um, I had no shortage of opportunities to have sex with a
Yep.
lot of women,
Yep.
and I did it. I went through like all my integrated man whore phase,
Yep.
and I'm glad I did it because by going through it, I did get to the place where I thought I'm not really enjoying the casual sex.
Yeah.
New woman every time, got to wear a condom, got to
Yeah.
work
For
out the
sure.
details of things. I don't know how her body works. She don't know what I like. I think I kind of want to stick to having sex with one woman, get to know her,
Yeah.
have trust, but I went through that man whore phase,
Mm-hmm.
and I kind of like, I got to the other side of it, and I go, this works better for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you once a guy learns, how to get laid
Mm-hmm.
with multiple women, often he doesn't want to give that up. And I'm not saying he
Right.
should,
Right.
but I'm also saying that will that be satisfying in the long term?
Right. Right. Yeah, that's something that I mean. There's this guy Dan Bilzerian. He's this big famous guy. I'm not sure if he's going crazy on Twitter. I might have seen something about that, but he
He's got
had
a big beard, right?
yeah, I think so. Yeah, he had as much opportunity as you could imagine. And I think recently he's been talking about that it's not ultimately fulfilling, and this is something that society used to manage for us, and now we have to manage it ourselves, and we don't have to, and we don't want to, and that's yeah, that might be one of the biggest problems with like I don't usually give very much advice to guys who are good at getting girls because telling them not to, they're not going to listen. Hey man,
Why would that?
hey,
Yeah,
chill
I
out on
wouldn't have
that.
listened to it. Yeah,
Because it's
yeah.
just it's a cyclical, self-perpetuating problem. But yeah, no, I think we're on the same page with all that.
Well,
Um,
let me ask you a question
sure.
about that. Um, Again, you did the video about the woman talking about situationships.
Yes.
And again, if you guys haven't watched it, watch it. It's a great video.
Yeah.
It's got my stamp of
Yeah.
approval.
Lingo.
Um, Lingo, there it
That's what
is.
it's called.
So I stumbled on a video just a few days ago, and again,
Hmm.
I'm not on, mainly I went looking to find you on
Hmm.
videos, and I stumbled on one that maybe it had like 4 views,
Hmm.
and it was a woman talking, and it was just an image on the screen on the video screen. It wasn't her. You couldn't see her,
Mhm.
but she was basically saying, and I think she's probably a youngish woman, and she said, I want to explore my sexuality.
Mhm.
I want to learn about me as a person, who I am as a sexual person. I need to have sex to do that, and I'm open to having honest, consensual, casual sexual
Mhm.
relationships with men
Mhm.
because how else can I explore me as a sexual person?
Right.
And she said, "But how come guys, have to how come they have to play games? How come they have to manipulate?" Kinda like the woman in the video you talked about on
Yep.
Lingo.
Mhm.
She talked about the casual cruelty
Yeah.
of men.
Yep.
So the question that I'm asking, because I can understand where the woman is coming from.
Mhm.
She's actually being clear and direct about what she wants.
Right.
Can men be equally clear and direct and say, "You know what? I'm not looking for a girlfriend.
Yeah.
I'd be glad to explore sexuality with you to see wherever it goes."
Yeah, right up
Ca-
front, yeah.
or have the way that men been taught to do it on the internet, pick up boot camps, all that, are we just basically taught play a game, manipulate,
Yeah.
scam them,
Right.
neg them, play dread games, spin the plates, don't tell them the truth, don't let them
Right.
know, don't be vulnerable. And I'm going, why? You
Yeah.
don't have to do all that stuff to get laid if you're a guy.
Right. It would be nice, yeah, it would be nice if they would um, be more open and honest and not, because it's not like I think that girl in that video was the only one who did anything wrong. She says the guy didn't let her know and all this stuff, and it's like you could, even if she doesn't ask, you could talk about it beforehand.
Sure.
Um, something about it feels like it's kind of a big ask of this generation to ask them to generate communication skills of that nature. I don't know.
Wow, but it seems beneficial.
It's definitely beneficial.
It seemed like it might have value to. And here's the
I'm
thing.
trying as much as I can.
Well, I'll go back to my interactions with Gen Zs
Hmm.
is that they actually seem really
Yeah.
um, open to just curious things,
Hmm.
whether it's open to doing plant medicines, open to experimenting sexually with different stuff. So
Yeah.
there does seem to be a real openness. My generation, even though, like I
Hmm.
said, I guess I was tail end of, I missed out, like I said, on
Hmm.
all
Hmm.
all the summer of love and free sex and
Yeah.
drugs.
Hmm.
But there's an openness about them,
Hmm.
and and I'm wondering if maybe the core issue we're dealing with Gen Z is they're still just young.
Yeah. Maybe it could be. It's I see some major differences between Gen Z and when I was their age, but yeah, I don't know. It could be. Teaching communication skills on a mass scale is going to be that's a lot. I'm trying to manage what I can, but
Yeah, I'm still learning how to communicate
for
myself and
sure.
just
Yeah.
ask for
If
what I
everyone
want and
yeah,
let my yes be yes and my no be no and
yeah,
be
if
clear.
everyone just came out and said what they wanted and what they were thinking, the problem would be mostly solved, but they won't. I
Well,
do
how
I
about we throw that out as maybe an idea to consider?
yeah,
And not the same thing as like we've talked about, throw out whatever you're thinking like people do on the internet and just
right,
get snarky and
right,
critical and dismissive and
yeah,
whatever, but just say this is what I really want or
yeah,
this isn't what I want or are you open to doing this? Because again, when I started getting laid a lot in my 40s and
hmm
50s, I believe it was because I was so authentic and honest with women, and they go, I'm not used to this. You need to write another book to tell men what you're doing.
yeah,
They were not used to men
yeah,
being clear and direct and
right,
honest and transparent and authentic about what they wanted and where they were going and what they expected
and it
of
works,
the
right? It
interaction.
prevents it prevents a lot of problems.
And it doesn't fix everything because, like, for example, I tell a woman, I'm not looking for a relationship. I've been married for 25 years.
Hmm.
I'm not rushing to get back in another long-term. And they go,
Right.
I know, I get that. Let's see where it goes, enjoy each other. Then they get that look in their eyes, and
Hmm.
they're falling. And I would remind them, remember, I heard you the first time. You don't have to tell me again
Yeah.
that you're not looking for a girlfriend. But so
Yeah.
it still gets messy. It still gets
For
messy because we're
sure.
talking
Yeah.
about love and desire and lust and sex and
Right.
and roles that we don't understand and so it still gets messy. But the communication, I think, upped my sex appeal for
Yeah.
women.
Yeah. Definitely. If you know how to, that's something that definitely works for me too, especially with higher quality women. the kind that you actually want to spend your time with. If you can speak openly and honestly and actually say what you're thinking and understand the relationship better, the relationship will work better. I do want to get to this. There's a question in the chat real quick, and then I want to
Sure.
hear one from you
Okay.
before we, and then I think that should be about time. Someone in the chat, Human Psych Engineering, says, how does Dr. G perceive the impact he is having on men's lives now versus back in the F and M therapy days? I hope you know what that means. I don't. In my experience, when a couple is in F and M therapy, the relationship is the client versus the people.
They may just be talking about family and marriage therapy,
Oh,
probably.
sure.
Yeah. You know what? And that is what I was trained to do, was to see there was not a quote identified patient. That's where marriage and family therapy diverged from the psychological approaches that
Mm-hmm.
preceded it. There
Yeah.
was always a sick person that needed to be. It was a medical model.
Yeah.
And so marriage and family therapy is a systemic model, is what is happening in this system. And especially like looking, say, a system that involves just adults, for example.
Mm-hmm.
I was trained to look at every system of existing exactly the way it exists because everybody involved needs it to exist that way.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it wouldn't. It'd look like something else if anybody in that system needed it to be. So relational systems are driven by mostly unconscious dynamics,
Mm-hmm.
childhood stuff, things that are beyond our conscious awareness. But if in marriage and family, marriage therapy, let's say, if we just tell, well, the man, you're being bad, you need to quit, or the woman, you're doing that. Now, it
Mm-hmm.
could be they are doing things that are hurtful to the relationship,
Mm-hmm.
but how can we look at the system the two of them have created as being the thing that we can work on? Because it's actually easier to go work on the relationship system than it is to like alter somebody's personality
Yeah.
and way of being, and like in a short amount of time. Now, I don't know if I got the whole question. Was it what's changed
It
nowadays?
was. It was. How do you perceive the impact you're having on men's lives now versus back in those days? That
Back
was
when I
so.
was
So that was the question. How do you perceive the impact you're having
okay.
on men's lives now, back in those days? And then the second part of the question was, in his experience, when a couple is in family and marriage therapy, it's the relationship that's the client rather than the people being the client.
Yeah. So yeah, again, I would always treat the relationship as the client. Like
Yeah.
people would walk in, they say, "We want you to save our marriage,"
Mm-hmm.
and I go, "I'm not willing to do that." I said, "If I want, if my goal is to help you guys stay together forever, I teach you to be good liars.
Yeah.
That's probably the best way to do it.
Yeah.
But I will help you guys find different ways of interacting with each other. And if
Mm-hmm.
we can kind of, and there's a kind of a cardinal rule of marriage therapy that says whatever the couple's fighting about is
Yeah.
not really what they're fighting about.
Yeah.
Whatever they're presenting is not the real issue.
Right.
And so if you jump on board and start helping them work out the thing they're presenting, you've just colluded with the dysfunction
Right.
that's already there.
Right.
Again, you have to reframe it. You have to shift it. You have to somehow come in and be a different way of being in that relationship
Yeah.
for them. Now, the work I'm doing with men now, I don't really do marriage therapy anymore,
Mm-hmm.
mainly because a lot of the work I do is either like in groups and or over the internet, and I've
Mm-hmm.
not found couples therapy to be really easy to do over the internet. I
Yeah.
mean, I can do a lot of one-on-one fine.
For sure.
And I'm not saying I would walk away if somebody said, "Hey, Robert, we want to come to Mexico and, pay you a few $1,000s to, spend a few hours with you and while you work on our marriage."
Mm-hmm.
Odds are I'd say yes to that. So it's not that I quit doing it, but I think what I see that I do with men now is that I'm, as much as anything, I'm helping build community for men.
Mm-hmm.
Where again, I'll go back to that thing I said earlier. I tell couples the best thing you can do is have good same sex friends.
Yeah.
And I think if I can help men have a deep connection with men, that's the foundation. And then whatever structure we build of a relationship with the opposite sex, whatever that means to us,
Mm-hmm.
is going to be built on that good, solid foundation of men. I already know how to be vulnerable. I already know how to ask for what I want. I already know how to get supported. I already know how to let people love me as
Yeah.
I love them. And then I think that really makes doing the relationship stuff, the sexual relationship,
Yeah.
the intimate relationship, makes that a lot more manageable.
Yeah. All right. We're kind of getting up on time. Do you have any
We
questions that
are.
you wanted to
Oh,
that you
you
really
know,
wanted to get to?
all right. How about one quick question? How about a porn question?
Okay.
Again, you and I are both getting to know each other,
Mm-hmm.
and somebody asked a question really early on. What might I disagree with you, and what you might disagree with me, and
Sure.
you and I both said, I don't know. We
Yeah,
don't know each
yeah.
other quite well enough to
Yeah,
know what to
what do you
disagree.
think? What do you think
Yeah,
it would be?
yeah. Well, no, I don't actually know. We probably would find some different viewpoints of things,
Probably.
but I I would think, I would hope, but I haven't found anything yet that I thought, "Oh, fuck, man, you got it totally back asswards." I haven't had that thought yet.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you have with me. But here the thing, I've seen you mention a little bit about porn.
Mm-hmm.
Now, not a lot. I haven't followed you enough to know what you say about porn. But so I kind of a question I have is that about a year ago, I went online because in my men's program, I thought
Mm-hmm.
about doing something called, I've heard of Sober October,
Mm-hmm.
where men make a decision not to drink for the month of October.
Mm-hmm.
And then I ran across something called No Nut November.
Yeah.
And so I went online and looked that up. I was really blown away. I mean, looking at just internet in general, even Wikipedia, but mainstream media, kind of with thought, oh yeah, going a month without drinking, that's probably a good idea to
Mm-hmm.
learn, self control and blah 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 blah. But when it came to the no nut November, and or deciding not to masturbate or not to look at porn, and
Mm-hmm.
even referenced no fat movement,
Mm-hmm.
mainstream media was like almost attacking,
Yeah.
ranging from dismissive to attacking. Even like Rolling Stone magazine
Yeah.
had this article saying this is a far right wing,
Oh, of course.
male thing, and the no fat movement. Mainly they would make fun of it, and they say that this is ritualistic, and it's kind of like they could see the value of a
Yeah.
man not drinking for a month,
Yeah.
but they both ridiculed and actually thought it was something diversive
Right.
for a man to say, "I'm not going to look at porn or jack off for a month." So, what
Yeah.
are your thoughts about that?
Well,
Why
I
do you
mean,
think
I'm gonna
that
go.
is?
I'm gonna go just directly into the conspiracy theory angle. I think that pretty much everybody in the system is reliant on spreading and propagating that. I think that the existence of easily available, explicit materials does something to the male mind that makes them submissive and unmotivated and like better slaves. I think that our
Okay,
system is a very sophisticated way of making men into mindless, short-term pleasure chasers, and that's one of the easiest ways to do it is just
I
put
love the way you put that. Yeah.
yeah, put nudity in front of them. That's why I
And then
recommend that nobody watches it. Yeah.
make them feel bad about being turned on by the
Of course,
nudity at the
because
same
shame
time.
is good for being a
Oh,
slave too.
shame's
Yeah.
wonderful. Shame and guilt are just tremendous. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's my take on it. It's not a long answer, but I think that the system pushes it because they know it's bad for us, and it's the same reason they want us fat. It's the same reason they don't cure things. They just treat them. It's the same. It's always keep people in a condition, and being addicted to XXX materials is
And
it's a condition.
and just let the systems keep running that are in running and have a vested investment in continuing to run.
Yeah.
Whatever those systems are, whether it's corporations, whether it's religion, whether it's political parties.
Yeah, for sure.
All right,
So
that's a good answer.
yeah, I think that's a good. I think that's a good.
I
It's a
was
good place to wrap.
surprised
Yeah.
though. I was really surprised. Like, oh yeah, it's probably a good idea not to drink for a month.
Mm-hmm.
But why would you not masturbate to porn for a month? How radical? How crazy is that? Why?
Yeah.
Well, that must be a far right wing,
Yeah.
nutcase men ritual. I'm going
Yeah.
what?
Whenever the system calls anyone far right, it means we can't have you doing that because then we can't control you. That's what that means.
Yeah. Okay, that's code. All right.
Yeah. So yeah. So I think it's about time to wrap up. This has been great. It's been good having you. I hope we got to everything that you wanted to get to. We kind of
This has
had
been
we had a chat in the middle.
yeah. This was. I knew it was going to be fun. It was even more fun than I thought it was going to
Oh, that's
be.
great.
It's like
And it
this is like
worked too. The computer's still running.
It worked, for anybody that criticized you for not knowing how to do a live stream,
Yeah.
F them. You ran a beautiful live stream.
All right.
And thank you for agreeing to do this.
Of
And this
course.
was is a great way to get to know you. I,
Yeah.
I like the content you're putting out there.
Yeah. Thank you.
I'm going to be your biggest fan for you to keep doing it.
Yeah.
Um,
So yeah, tell everyone what you're up to and where they can find you if they want to see your stuff.
All right. Well, go to drglover.com if you want to find out about my workshops, if you want to find out about my classes, and go to integrationnation.net if you're tired of going it alone and you want a community event.
All right.
And we're actually doing an open enrollment in just a few days, and we do them once a month. So check out integrationnation.net.
All
How
right.
about you? Anything you want to pitch?
Yeah, I don't know where I put the paper. Oh, I think it's under my desk. Yeah, guys should check out selfmax.ai, and
There
then
we go.
look me up on Linktree too. That's where everything I do is. Linktree, put that into Linktree, you find me.
Okay.
All
All
right.
right.
All right, it's been
HM,
great.
it was great.
All right, I'll see ya.